The city of Bloomington is looking at a big increase in its annual budget, and a lot of it is going toward fixing the roads.
Something that we have committed to because we know those are the things we hear most from constituents.
The mayor of Bloomington coming up on WGLT's Sound Ideas. Good evening, I'm John Norton. Also on today's show, regional planners want feedback on rural transportation needs in central Illinois.
We're looking for where people are not getting served.
And a congressional race in southern Illinois pits two far-right Republicans against each other in a battle of who's further to the right.
I see failure, and then I begin to go around and just ask people.
We have people that are more interested in being on social media.
Those stories follow a Bloomington Normal News update just ahead. This is Sound Ideas on 89.1 WGLT and WGLT.org, part of the NPR network.
Support for WGLT comes from Bloomington Normal Audiology. Hear My Story continues with local patient Paul Brandt.
I listen to radio a fair amount during the day. With the phone being paired with the hearing aids, the radio is right in my ear. That's real nice.
Paul's full story can be found at bnaudiology.com.
From the campus of Illinois State University in Normal, this is WGLT's news magazine, Sound Ideas. Good evening, I'm John Norton. The proposed budget for the city of Bloomington next fiscal year is nearly $332 million. It would be 14% higher than the current spending plan, or a $41.5 million jump. In this conversation with WGLT's Charlie Schlenker, Mayor Mboko Malamwe explains where the increase goes.
Most of it is due to capital projects. We also do have some equipment out of the fire department, fire engine, ambulances, things that we have to do sooner rather than later, because there tends to be a delay in being able to procure that equipment. But there's also wages, of course, pension contributions to public safety.
Nearly half of the next budget, $159 million, is public safety and capital. Mm-hmm. You highlighted a couple of those, but what are you doing on streets and sewer?
On street and sewer, same thing. We're going to have about $10 million, in terms of street resurfacing, just like we did last year. So that's a major commitment that we were making as a council, something that we have committed to because we know those are the things we hear most from constituents. So, and it's a lot more than what it used to be in the past. I always like to remind people, when I started on the council, we had some years where we didn't spend a whole lot of money on street resurfacing, and now this is something that you're going to see consistently over the next few years. And there is also the Locust Colton combined sewer overflow elimination project that's on the books, and we have to finish that up. We also have about $32 million, I believe, for state motor fuel tax. So that's where, a lot of it is going.
Break it down for the taxpayer, would you? That 14%, $41 million increase, how much of that is on the taxpayer? How much of it is grants from somewhere else outside the city of Bloomington? How much of it is natural revenue growth from sales tax that is just a part of the natural life cycle of a taxpayer? Yeah,
it is. Actually, I'm glad you brought that up. We are seeing quite a bit of an increase in terms of our tax revenues. If you look at state income tax, property replacement tax, home rule taxes, we're also seeing an increase even in hotel motel tax. So that's where quite a bit of that is coming. But there is also some projects that we're going to use reserves, because that's something that we were planning for when you talk about water and things like that.
The Human Relations Commission has not met since August. It's been difficult to get a quorum. The terms of all but one of the current members have technically expired. What is your progress on finding new members to appoint?
Yeah, so that's something that we are looking at. I was made aware of that, so I talked to the staff, to take another look at that. And one of the things that typically I try to do, we do get people who apply for boards and commissions, but sometimes there is, some boards and commissions are more popular than others. What I try to do is to look at, the possibility. Oftentimes I'll have the staff reach out to individuals that have not been able to be placed. And then we'll ask them if they will be interested in serving on another board or commission. So there will be, that's something that we're working on.
Do you personally recruit?
Yeah, sometimes I do. There are people that I see wherever I can. I talk to people about it and say, hey, we have boards and commissions, and really we look forward to having just about anybody in the community serve.
Why is it so difficult to find people for boards and commissions?
I think it is just because, for one, it's a volunteer position. People are very busy. Some people are naturally more geared towards public service, and others are simply not interested. I think for some folks, for example, that I can think of. So if you are somebody who who has a low income, moderate income, I think volunteering is a luxury. People are working 2 jobs and trying to make ends meet, so that can make it very difficult. But also just given the nature of some boards and commissions, some people just have a low interest in it.
This is Sound Ideas. I'm Charlie Schlenker. We're talking with Bloomington Mayor Mboka Mulambwe. Are there other boards and commissions that have a similar issue to human relations? Lapsed terms?
I'd have to take a look. I do know, for example, the PSCRB, where we've had a significant issue with that, is that we, with the youth members, that's difficult to recruit. 17, 18-year-olds, and then just the nature of the board. They come off after about a year. It makes it kind of difficult. I mean, I think it was one of those things that was interesting, in theory, looked promising, but the practicality of it is, something that we have to contend with.
It's worth noting that you are far from the first mayor to have a vacancy problem on boards and commissions.
Yes, thank you.
Part of the work of the Human Relations Commission is to investigate and mediate discrimination complaints. How important is that work to you?
It is. I think it is very important, and that's something that, I'd like to see us make some progress on. One of the things that I should also mention, like I said, I have city staff, looking into the issue, meeting with the chair of the Human Relations Commission, and see, how we can address that.
If people are interested in serving in some fashion, in volunteering with the city, what should they do?
Well, they can certainly, I've had people reach out to me personally by email. But on the city website, there is an application form that they can fill out. And for those who might not be as technology savvy, they can certainly go to the hub and request an application and fill it out in writing.
The city is going to allocate about $800,000 in community development block grant money. How are you going to parcel that out?
The general gist of CDBG is to make sure that we eliminate blight, but also keep our affordable housing stock and also provide quality services through institutions, organizations like Home Sweet Home and Prairie Legal Services and things like that. So there's about 390 some dollars that's going to go.
1,000.
Sorry, 1,000. Yes, yes. that is going to go to housing rehabilitation. I think about...
Are those grants to individuals or landlords? How do you maintain the housing stock? What is the city doing?
Yeah, those would be to individuals. I think they will be able to provide up to 12 for grants for people to rehab their homes and continue to keep it livable.
That's Bloomington Mayor Mboka Malamwe. He spoke with WGLT's Charlie Schlenker. Coming up tomorrow, do people who are terminally ill have a right to die? There's a proposal in the state legislature that would allow patients to end their lives on their own terms. That story tomorrow on Sound Ideas.
Inflation is slowing and wages are up. So why doesn't it feel like it? Sticker shock. It's sticky. Next time on Marketplace.
Listen to Marketplace beginning at 5:30 this afternoon on WGLT, sponsored by CEFCU.
In 2002, Jennifer Lopez released an album called This Is Me Then. Her new album is This Is Me Now.
I was inspired by that time in my life. And 20 years later, the kind of same thing happened to me where I was like, I want to get back in the studio. I want to make music again.
NPR's Leila Fadel speaks with Jennifer Lopez tomorrow on Morning Edition from NPR News. I'm co-host Dave Martinez. Join us for Morning Edition weekdays from 4 to 9 a.m. on WGLT.
Stories and conversations around Bloomington Normal and McLean County. This is WGLT's news magazine, Sound Ideas. The McLean County Regional Planning Commission is looking for public input to help update a transportation plan that benefits vulnerable populations across central Illinois. It's been about 9 years since the Regional Human Services Transportation Plan was last updated. People living in rural parts of 5 counties, including McLean, are being encouraged to complete a new survey that will shape the final plan. In this conversation with WGLT student reporter Evie York, senior transportation planner Jennifer Six says they are trying a lot of tactics to get public input.
We are using social media. We are using email. We have a pretty wide network. Again, we're asking our participating agencies and local governments to help us get the word out so that people know it's out there. Basically, anything we can think of that will help penetrate the airspace and make sure that people are aware that this is going on.
What is the Regional Human Services Transportation Plan?
It's part of a larger set of activities we carry out that help provide transportation to the general public, first of all, but also mostly to people who are involved with agencies that provide services to people with various needs. It can be people with disabilities, it can be seniors, a very long list of sort of categories of the population that need a little extra service.
So it's for 5 counties, and there are a lot of rural areas in those counties, right?
Correct.
So is this plan just for rural residents, or is it for everyone?
It's primarily directed at disadvantaged populations, so it's not so much rural or urban, although most of our providers, some of them are in urban areas, most are in smaller cities, and so it's treated by the sort of definitions as rural. So McLean County is the sort of base because that's where we are, but it also includes Livingston, Kankakee, which is also an urban county, but they're part of this group, Iroquois, and Ford counties. So Iroquois, Ford, and to some extent Livingston are pretty rural and have smaller populations. So it's a big area. Out of the 5 counties that we capture, 3 are among the largest counties in the state of Illinois by area. So if you're providing transportation, that's actually a challenge because there's a lot of distance to cover and people are sort of far flung. So that's part of it. Part of what the plan is supposed to do, and the reason we're doing a survey right now, and by the way, if your listeners are interested, they can find the survey on our website, mcplan.org. We're looking for where people are not getting served, the gaps in the service, populations we haven't found yet, people we haven't found yet. And so the more we learn about everybody, everyone can tell us about their experiences, what their needs are, the better the chances that we can design service and find ways of providing it that will reach them all.
So if you live out in the county, it's really difficult for public transportation to be easily accessible. What options do those people have other than besides like calling a cab or finding a friend to drive them?
There is one very important resource. It's called SHOBUS, which is an acronym, but I won't go into it. And it is rural public transportation. which serves 9 counties, including all of the 5 in our Region 6, which is what this is called under the plan. They provide all kinds of service. They are operating under a variety of different agreements with the state of Illinois to provide rural public transportation service, and it's pretty robust. And if you call them, chances are they will find a connection for you. And I think in rural parts of these counties, they're better known than they are in Bloomington Normal, but every now and then you'll see a show bus vehicle in town because they have, access in and out, basically. So that's our primary resource and our primary provider. And then most of the others are smaller agencies that primarily provide transportation for their own clients or customers, but not always. It depends.
What changes do you recommend to improve access to rural areas for people to get more transportation, and then how do you go about doing that?
It's a difficult question because really the limits are resource bound. Funding. Right at the moment, we have a little bit of a crisis in terms of the availability of vehicles. All the vehicles used by these services are provided by the state of Illinois, and they are fully equipped for essentially paratransit. They have wheelchair lifts, they have securements for wheelchairs, they have all kinds of features that you wouldn't find on an ordinary van or a small bus. So those are kind of in short supply at the moment, and we're just trying to find, stop gaps until the manufacturing can catch up with the demand.
From the last survey you guys sent out in 2015, what were the main takeaways that you found from that survey?
Well, a number of things, and coming from the providers, the organizations that actually provide transportation, a lot of it had to do with stability of funding, stability of those vehicles, being able to find resources when they needed them. There's a general concern, or there was a general concern, and it probably persists, especially in the rural areas, that it's simply hard to find rides that you need at the time you need them. That's true actually in Bloomington Normal as well. People who are looking to get to a doctor's appointment or a trip to a hospital or whatever, it can be difficult to schedule at exactly the time you want because, again, the resources are limited. So it's always a matter of constrained resources and being able to find workarounds so that people can get where they need to go and get back again in a timely fashion.
Did any changes to the plan result from those takeaways that you just mentioned?
Well, it's an ongoing problem, so yes. And the other thing is that there was a lot of sort of trauma basically caused by the pandemic. And so some agencies found themselves having to sort of realign their goals and missions. That's beginning to sort of creep back to normal now, but it's taking time. And because of the disruption that caused, we're finding sort of new issues that need to be addressed and looked at and studied more carefully so we can come up with a reasonable solution.
That's Jennifer Six, Senior Transportation Planner at the McLean County Regional Planning Commission. She spoke with WGLT student reporter Edie York. You can find the survey at WGLT.org. It's available in English and Spanish and is open until March 1st. I'm John Norton. This is WGLT's news magazine, Sound Ideas. In far southern Illinois, a conservative congressman like incumbent Mike Bost would ordinarily be a shoo-in for re-election. But he faces a serious challenge in the March 19th primary from a fellow Republican who says Bost's voting record isn't good enough, even though Bost was in line with former President Donald Trump 94% of the time. IPR's Alex Degman reports.
In a campaign ad filmed on a dreary, foggy January 1st, Darren Bailey walks out the front door of his home carrying an AR-15 rifle.
A lot of people have been asking me if I'm going to comply with JB's illegal gun registry.
The point of the ad is for Bailey to protest Illinois' new assault weapons ban, which had just gone into effect that day.
Well, friends, here's your answer.
Bailey takes aim and shoots at a piece of paper tacked to a tree that said, "I will not comply." Bailey's challenging incumbent Mike Bost for his seat in Congress. Normally, established political parties like to avoid divisive primaries like this, so I went to Bailey's family farm to get a sense of why he's doing this.
Good to see you. You as well.
Bailey says he's running because he's unhappy with the job that Bost has done.
I see failure, and then I begin to go around and just ask people, well, who is this Mike Bost? What's he done? And I never get an answer for that.
Bailey's known as a political firebrand. He made a name for himself in Springfield as a state representative and state senator, and won the Republican nomination for Illinois governor in what was an expensive and competitive primary. He even got Donald Trump's endorsement in that race, which may have helped him win the primary, but not in November. Bailey lost badly to Democrat J.B. Pritzker, which led here. Bailey running for a seat in Congress that's already held by a reliable conservative. Bailey says Bost is out of step with the party, though, saying Bost supports background checks and regulating bump stocks. Plus, Bailey says Bost has been ineffective.
Might have thrown some papers up in the air 10 years ago or maybe last year, they don't know.
Bailey's referring to Bost's viral moment.
I feel like somebody trying to be released from Egypt. Let my people go! My God, they sent me.
You can't hear it, but Bost throws a stack of paper in the air and tries to punch it out of exasperation. It was a rare moment of theatrics for Bost back when he was a lawmaker in Springfield, and he lost his temper with Democrats who controlled the legislative process. Now that he's in Washington, Bost says frustrations still boil over, but he's not being an obstructionist.
One thing's for sure, when you express a strong opinion, you've got to be willing to work to make the changes, not just to say, I've got a strong opinion.
Bost entered Congress in 2015. He says his main issues in Washington are ag, infrastructure, and veterans, and he's introduced 85 bills, 5 of which have become law. He calls himself a governing conservative.
Our real issue is to try to gain ground where we can gain ground and actually govern from the small majority that we have.
And while he doesn't use Bailey's name, Bost does take shots at his primary challenger.
Unfortunately, we have people that are more interested in being on social media to get likes on social media and also who work to get on a 24-hour news network.
In this deep red district, whoever wins the March 19th Republican primary is likely to win the November general election. But Bost is still fighting for political survival against his own party, with Trump potentially leading the ticket this year. So he's lined up endorsements from Congressman Jim Jordan and Ronnie Jackson, Donald Trump's former physician, along with groups of farmers, police officers, firefighters, and veterans. Bost has heavily outraised Bailey so far, 6-1, with Bost raising a little more than $1.8 million last year compared to Bailey's $311,000. Though Bailey has gotten a couple of major endorsements of his own from the far right side of the party, Congresswoman Mary Miller of Illinois and Congressman Matt Gaetz of Florida. One person who has not made an endorsement in this primary race, at least not yet, is Donald Trump. I'm Alex Degman.
Closer to home, WGLT is previewing all the primary races that impact voters in McLean County. You'll hear them on Sound Ideas over the next few weeks. And you can find more candidate interviews in our voter guide at WGLT.org/election. That includes a link to the Vote 411 guide offered by the nonpartisan League of Women Voters of McLean County. And that is Sound Ideas today. WGLT's news magazine is made possible in part by Bloomington Normal Audiology. I'm John Norton. You got story help today from WGLT's Charlie Schlenker and student reporter Evie York. Ryan Toohey edits Sound Ideas. This is 89.1 WGLT and WGLT.org, part of the NPR network.